A 25 win, it was not a huge day through the air for Jalen Hurts. He ended the day with just 130 passing yards. Meantime, a disgruntled A.J. Brown went to X after just 2 receptions for 7 yards with scripture from the Bible taking us to church. Quote, "If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way." As a petty queen, I too have subscribed to this many times. Do you think this is something, or are we making something about nothing, Cam?
The Eagles are undefeated. The reigning Super Bowl champions are sitting at 4-0 after beating Dallas, Kansas City, Los Angeles, and Tampa Bay. But instead of everyone talking about another flawless start, the conversation is about A.J. Brown's cryptic post. Yeah, you heard that right. A Cowboys legend saying the Eagles' top receiver would rather catch passes from Dak than Hurts. So what's actually going on here? Is this drama legit or just noise around the league's hottest team? And how does it affect the Eagles as they get ready for the Broncos in Week 5? The Philadelphia Eagles are genuinely surviving one of the toughest opening stretches you'll find in football. Think about it. Week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, division rivals who always bring intensity. Week 2, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, the standard for offensive firepower. Week 3, the Los Angeles Rams, who are never an easy matchup with their passing attack. And finally, Week 4, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that's given the Eagles problems over the past few seasons. That's 4 heavyweight battles right out of the gate, and the Eagles walked out of every single one of them with a win, 4-0, sitting atop the NFC and doing it as the defending Super Bowl champions. On paper, this should feel like smooth sailing. You beat the best, you're undefeated, and the roster looks stacked. But inside the headlines, something else is brewing. While the scoreboard shows perfection, the locker room is dealing with frustration, and it starts with one of the team's biggest stars, wide receiver A.J. Brown. Week 4 in Tampa looked like it was going to be a statement win. The Eagles jumped out early, controlled the first half, and seemed ready to put the Buccaneers away. But what should have been a comfortable finish turned into a nail-biter. The final score was 31-25, and if you watch closely, you saw why this game is still being talked about.
The offense, right, being a little bit more inventive. Kevin Patula, that was the question going into this season, Moose. Like, he had never called plays before, and we saw him be extra conservative the first couple of weeks. By script last week, they had to open up the offense because they had a massive lead they had to try to come back and win. In this game, you saw a little bit more wrinkles. You saw the shovel passes to Dallas Goedert. And with Jalen Hurts, he didn't have, crazy, outrageous numbers, but efficient with the football, throwing it where he needs to throw. Todd Bowles likes to blitz. He knew exactly where to go on third down.
The biggest storyline, the passing game disappeared for long stretches. At one point, the Eagles went an entire half without a single wide receiver making a catch. That's not something you expect from a team loaded with A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. And when the dust settled, Brown's stat line was almost unrecognizable. 9 targets, just 2 catches, and only 7 yards. That's production you'd expect from a backup receiver, not one of the league's top playmakers. The offense as a whole looked uneven. Saquon Barkley hasn't yet found his rhythm behind this line, and Jalen Hurts, while efficient, didn't push the ball downfield the way we've seen in past games. Still, the Eagles escaped with a win. They're 4-0, but the Bucs game showed that perfection on the scoreboard doesn't always mean perfection on the field. And that set the stage for A.J. Brown's frustration spilling over. After the Buccaneers game, most players were celebrating another tough win. A.J. Brown, though, wasn't in that mood. Instead of talking to reporters in the locker room, he went silent. A few hours later, he let his feelings out, not in an interview, but with a post on social media. The message was short but powerful. It read, "If you're not welcome, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way." It was a modern translation of a verse from the Gospel of Mark, and it sent the football world into overdrive.
Scripture from the Bible taking us to church. Quote, "If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way." As a
Why? Well, because cryptic posts from star receivers are like lighting a match near gasoline. Fans immediately wondered if Brown was unhappy in Philadelphia. Analysts started questioning his relationship with Jalen Hurts, and of course, the trade rumors started flying. What made it even louder is that Brown had already hinted at frustration earlier in the week. He said the Eagles' offense sometimes felt too conservative, and he wanted them to let their playmakers loose. Put those comments together with a stat line of 2 catches for 7 yards, and the speculation became unavoidable. That one post turned what should have been a normal Monday victory lap into a firestorm. And the person who had to address it head-on was head coach Nick Sirianni. By Monday morning, the buzz around A.J. Brown's post was impossible to ignore. Talk shows were debating it, fans were dissecting every word, and reporters wanted answers. So when Nick Sirianni stepped to the podium, the question was clear. Does Brown really want out of Philadelphia? Sirianni didn't dodge it. He backed his receiver completely. According to Nick, A.J. wants to contribute to more wins, but he's had a couple games where he hasn't been able to for different reasons.
Very important to this football team. I know he wants to contribute. I know he wants to contribute and, do the things that he's capable of doing. He wants to contribute into these wins. And he's had a couple games where he hasn't been able to, and for different reasons of why we haven't in these games. So, but I question nothing about, his desire to play great football, his desire of being a good teammate, his desire to be here.
That was about as direct as you'll get from Sirianni. He wasn't hinting. He wasn't brushing it off. He was telling everyone, A.J. Brown is committed to the Eagles. It was also a smart move. By publicly defending Brown, Sirianni shut down the trade speculation before it could spread further. And he reminded everyone that frustration from a star player doesn't always equal division. Sometimes it just means they want the ball more. Still, to really understand Brown's mindset, you have to look at his actual role in the offense this season. He's not just any wide receiver. Since arriving in Philadelphia, he's been one of the NFL's most consistent playmakers. 3 straight seasons over 1,000 yards. A Super Bowl run where he totaled 163 yards and 2 touchdowns in the postseason, and highlight reel plays that made him a nightmare for opposing defenses. This season, though, it's been a mixed bag. In Week 1 against the Cowboys, he wasn't even targeted until the final drive when he caught an 8-yard pass to help seal the win. In Week 2 against Kansas City, he finished with 5 catches for just 27 yards. Week 3 looked like the turning point. 6 receptions, 109 yards against the Rams. But then came Tampa Bay, where despite being targeted 9 times, he managed only 2 catches for 7 yards. Those numbers are jarring for a player of his level. And when you combine them with his comments about the offense being too conservative, it's clear he feels like the Eagles aren't using him the way they could. It's not about effort, but opportunity. And that gap between expectation and reality is exactly why this story won't go away quietly. Just when the story around A.J. Brown's frustration seemed like it might settle down, Michael Irvin poured gasoline on it. The Hall of Fame Cowboys receiver, now an analyst on ESPN's First Take, made one of the boldest claims of the week. He said that A.J. Brown would actually prefer to play with Dak Prescott instead of Jalen Hurts. Irvin's exact words were eye-catching. People get up and say, I'd take Jalen Hurts over Dak Prescott, but now we see, I don't think his own wide receiver would take him over Dak Prescott. That's what A.J. Brown is saying right here. The one game that they don't win and they don't throw him the ball, now you have a problem that will spill over. It didn't stop there. Irvin doubled down saying, I don't condone that he's this upset and undefeated, but we can't skirt what he is saying. The claim hit hard because it tied Brown's cryptic message to a larger quarterback debate. Hurts hasn't lost a complete start in a year and already has 2 Super Bowl appearances with 1 ring. Prescott, meanwhile, has never reached an NFC championship game. So, was Irvin genuinely reading between the lines? Or was this just another Cowboys legend stirring the pot? Either way, his words gave this story even more fuel.
Book reading? You want to say you don't read books? So it's like, hold on. He's trying to say without saying. I'm not happy. And there's been time and time again, we've seen this with A.J. Brown. But this is the reality too, where it's hard for you not to say as a fan, as an observer of the game, to say he's not capable. He's showing what you could do versus the Los Angeles Rams.
When you step back from the headlines, this comes down to pure chemistry. The Eagles have one of the most talented rosters in football, but keeping stars happy isn't always simple. Wide receivers, in particular, live on targets and touches. When they don't get the ball, frustration builds fast. No matter how many wins, the team piles up. That's why A.J. Brown's situation is worth watching closely. He's not the only receiver who can feel overlooked. DeVonta Smith is a proven playmaker who's also had games where his production vanished. Go back to the Buccaneers matchup, the entire receiving group went an entire half without catching a single pass. That's the kind of drought that tests patience, even in a winning locker room. Nick Sirianni knows this. His philosophy is that winning outweighs individual numbers. It's the right message, but players still want to feel involved. The challenge for the Eagles is keeping everyone engaged while running an offense that leans heavily on the ground game. Right now, Sirianni has managed the situation by publicly backing Brown, but behind closed doors, the coaching staff will have to find ways to feed their stars, or these small frustrations could grow bigger. The Eagles' 31-25 win over Tampa Bay was gritty. They jumped on the Bucs early, but the second half exposed cracks. Drives stalled, the passing game stalled out, and the lead was never utterly secure. Yet, a win's a win, and the 4-0 mark remains the clearest proof that this team still knows how to close.
The offense, right, being a little bit more inventive. Kevin Patula, that was the question going into this season, Moose. Like, he had never called plays before, and we saw him be extra conservative the first couple of weeks. By script last week, they had to open up the offense because they had a massive lead they had to try to come back and win. In this game, you saw a little bit more wrinkles. You saw the several passes to Dallas Goedert. And with Jalen Hurts, he didn't have, crazy, outrageous numbers, but efficient with the football, throwing it where he needs to throw.
On the injury front, things are far from perfect but manageable. Defensive end Ogbo Okoronkwo is expected to land on injured reserve with a triceps tear suffered against Tampa. Meanwhile, Dallas Goedert did not practice Wednesday with a knee injury and is considered questionable for Week 5. Other Eagles listed as limited: Lane Johnson, shoulder; Jalen Carter, shoulder; Adoree Jackson, groin; and Nakobe Dean, knee, after coming off PUP. On the Broncos side, their injury picture is lighter. One notable absence: T.E. Nate Adkins is in concussion protocol and listed as a non-participant. Several others are limited: Jonah Ellis, Marvin Mims Jr., but no major new injuries were announced. Now, all eyes turn to Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field, where the Eagles host the Denver Broncos. The Broncos arrive mostly healthy, facing a Philadelphia squad that must find more consistency through the air. Will Hurts and the offense lean on Brown early? Can Philly's depth absorb losses in pass rush? Expect intensity, fireworks, and narrative moments, especially around A.J. Brown's usage. Notably, Denver's defense has been a mixed bag. They generate pressure in spurts, but can be inconsistent against the run. That opens the door for Saquon Barkley to finally find his rhythm behind this offensive line. If Philadelphia's ground game gets rolling early, it can set up Jalen Hurts for clean play action looks, something that's been missing the past couple of weeks. This matchup may feel like a reset opportunity for A.J. Brown. The Broncos' secondary has been solid, but they don't have a true shutdown corner. Brown's physical style gives him a favorable edge, and Hurts will be under pressure to get him involved early. DeVonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, if healthy, round out a group that can stretch Denver's coverage thin. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles' defense will face Russell Wilson, who remains capable of extending plays outside the pocket. Containment will be crucial, say analysts. Even with Okoronkwo out, the front seven has the talent to make Wilson uncomfortable and limit Denver's explosive chances. What do you think? Is this just a star wanting more touches, or something deeper between Hurts and Brown? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed the breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and stick with us for every twist of the Eagles season.